us for another episode of Zoom into Adventure. Today we have Scott Arni with us. He's a captain and operations manager for the Palau Aggressor 2 and the Rock Islands Aggressor. Joining us today. I do want to tell you guys that you can ask questions throughout the call using the chat box below. It comes directly to me. I will ask questions that are appropriate to the topic throughout the call. We'll try to get all the questions we can. And we do want to make sure you guys stay muted and your screen stays off during the call, as it can be distracting for the presenter. So let me read you a quick little background on Scott. Scott started diving at 15 years old while in Boy Scouts. Let's see, got some more people coming in. Later, he became a captain and dive instructor while working at the Boy Scouts of America's Florida High Adventure Sea Base. Scott has worked on liveaboards for the past 20 years. Specifically, Scott has worked on the Cayman, Okeanos, Belize, Bay Islands, Fiji, Kona, and Turks and Caicos Aggressor yachts. For the past 6 years, he's been on the Palau and Rock Islands Aggressor yachts in Micronesia. So, Scott, how are you doing today? I guess I should be saying good morning to you. What time is it over there?
Good morning. It's 5 a.m. here now. So welcome, everyone. And I'm happy to be here to tell you guys a little bit about the Palau Aggressor and Rock Island Aggressor. As Cole said, my name is Scott Arni. Originally, I'm from Pennsylvania. Like you said, I started diving when I was 15. Learned in a rock quarry in Maryland, which was quite interesting. Very, very cold. Lots of wetsuit. Felt like a spare tire walking around. Not a lot to see, but I quickly became spoiled going to the Florida Keys and learning and really diving there with all the beautiful marine life. And at 15 years old, I was just absolutely hooked. It was the coolest thing in the world. Actually, I didn't need to see anything. Just the fact that I was underwater was enough to make it one of the best things I've ever done. Later, I was looking for something to do in the summer when I was in my 20s. So I went to the Florida Sea Base and took kids snorkeling and fishing at the High Adventure Sea Base called Florida Sea Base. It was really great. I really enjoyed it. I saw a whole staff of guys taking kids diving every day. And I was like, I really want to get back into that. So after the summer, I went and became a dive master, went back down for another summer as a dive master. Really loved it. It was great. So I actually stayed down there, became a dive instructor, became a captain, and then did another summer running the diving program for them at the sea base. And then soon after, I was looking for the next thing to do in my life. So my course director at the time actually passed my resume to Wayne Hassan at Beneath the Sea. That's when my resume got to Aggressor. I went down to Cayman, did my trial week with Tom Gebhardt and Randy Wright, who's actually the captain there now. So they were crew on board when I did my trial week. So very interesting, very fun. And then I got shipped off to Cocos Island a few weeks later. Obviously, starting my working career, I was a bit spoiled going straight to Cocos Island, which was absolutely incredible. The diving there with all the wonderful marine life. And then I moved around the fleet. You know, I wanted to see different places and travel. So I went to Belize, Bay Islands, Fiji, Kona, to Palau, and then to Turks and Caicos. I got to do the humpback whale charters, spent some time in the Philippines, and then back to Palau. And I've been in Palau for 6 years now.
Okay. So. Well, great. Well, thank you for getting up early with us. And if you're ready, we'll go ahead and share your screen and start your presentation. Excited to hear it.
Thank you. Is that good? Okay, so welcome everyone. First off, I just want to kind of share the location of Palau. Palau is directly to the east of the Philippines, the southern Philippines, and it is southwest of Guam. As you can see, on my screen. It's a tiny little island surrounded by water, or tiny little collection of islands surrounded by the ocean. Palau itself, believe it or not, is made up of over 500 islands. And the Republic of Palau is actually, there's 16 states within the Palau Islands. Palau is also the boundary line between the Philippine Sea, which is over on this side, and then the Pacific Ocean on this side. And we're about 7 degrees north of the equator as well. The Palau Aggressor was built, and the Rock Island Aggressor also were both built in Freeport in Washington State, right after another. One was built, and then they started building the second one as soon as they finished in 1994 and in 1996. Both boats are 110 feet long, 30-foot beam. They carry a crew or a guest capacity of 18, and then each one carries 8 crew. Okay. Both boats have twin Caterpillar 3412 main engines, 1,000 horsepower each, and then their propulsion is actually Hamilton jet propulsion. That really gives us a really shallow draft. We only draw about 3.5 feet of water. That kind of gives me the unique thing to kind of tell you about our boats. We're actually able to go through the man-made portion of German Channel. It's a very shallow channel that we're actually able to go through. This gets us closer to the dive sites, which makes shorter skiff rides. Most of the other liveaboards have to go out around the outer reef, out in the open water, where it can be rough. And of course, it's a longer ride. Our ride is right through the Rock Islands. So you get a beautiful Rock Island tour as we go out to the dive sites, and we can get nice and close. We also have a hydraulic lift for our 35-foot dive skiff on the back of the boat. As you can see in the picture here, we actually lift the cradle in and out of the water before and after every dive. Makes it easy to fill the tanks, but more importantly, it makes it very easy for guests to get in and out of the skiff safely. Just really nice thing. I've been on other boats in the past where it can be quite difficult with 2 different boats moving independently. Sometimes I've seen people fall down and things like that. It's just so much easier and safer to get in and out of our boats. We have absolutely amazing chefs on board our boat, ready to accommodate anybody's special dietary requests. Obviously, you know, we can only do what we can get in Palau, but we have really amazing, highly trained chefs that can cater to everyone's needs on board. So this is the layout of both the Palau Aggressor and Rock Island Aggressor. They are sister ships. They were built in the same shipyard. They're basically identical. There's only a few little minor differences between the 2 boats. On the lower level, you have cabin 1 and 2 starting up at the bow, then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and cabin 9 actually opens out onto the dive deck. Okay, so you have this big hallway in between, and at either end of the hallway, the guest corridor, you have the number 1 muster station, and then on the bow area, you have the secondary muster station. So if there's an emergency, you just leave your room, go to the primary muster station. If that were to be unsafe, the crew would direct you forward to the secondary muster station, which is up on the bow. Both doors at each end of the hallway are full-size walk-through doors on the Palau Aggressor. On the Rock Island Aggressor, it is a little bit smaller. It's a bulkhead door, but very easy to go through. It's just, you know, different than, it's not like some tiny little hatch that you have to open. It's a big full-size door, easy to get in and out. There's fire extinguishers located strategically all over the boat. And then moving up to the second deck, if you're you have a shade deck here, barbecue. We have a wet bar that the windows actually open up, makes it for a very like open air, really nice atmosphere for lunches and things like that. Then you have the lounge area, our restaurant. This is the galley, crew rooms, and then the pilot house here. If there's an emergency and you're on the second level, If you can't go down the stairs, which would lead you to the primary muster station, then you go out along the crew wing on either side and down the bow emergency ladders onto the bow of the boat to the secondary muster station here. If you're up on the sun deck, we have sun beds up here. This is a covered area right here, but there's sun beds on the back where it's uncovered. There's some nice tables and chairs there, also hammocks there. And then forward of that, there's a crew-only area where we keep all our life rafts, EPIRBs, all kinds of stuff like that. If there was an emergency there and you can't get down the stairs, you would go over to the emergency exit hatch here. It is a hatch, but it's actually quite large. You'd go down the hatch, and then you'd put you out right here on the second level, and then you could either go back and go down the stairs, or you could just go down the bow ladder to the secondary muster station. So the boat itself is very easy to navigate, easy to get to the emergency exits and the muster stations from anywhere on the boat. We also do a night watch on board the boat. The night watch usually hangs out in the salon area on the second level, but you know, sometimes they're making their rounds every 30 minutes or so. They're scheduled to walk around the boat and check to make sure that everything is safe and everything is in order on the vessel. All right, so a little bit about our itinerary. We start off in Malakal in Koror, which is also an area where they have a lot of the World War II shipwrecks. So we usually start off with a couple of shipwrecks at the beginning of the week. And then we go to things like the Ulong. This is Ulong Island right here. These are the dive sites for Ulong on the outer reef. That's one of the destinations. Second, you head over towards German Channel. German Channel has many, many dive sites. When I say like the German Channel area, that includes Blue Holes, Blue Corner, New Drop Off, Big Drop Off. All those dive sites are all in this area here. Then we go down to Peleliu. Really wonderful diving down there as well. You have Jellyfish Lake in here, Chandelier Caves back where the boat started. So we just make a nice big loop around to all the different diving areas. While we're actually in Peleliu, we have the opportunity to do an optional land tour, which I'll show you a little bit about later. But we also have, of course, some of the signature Palau dives or snorkels, Jellyfish Lake and Chandelier Cave as well. So the shipwrecks that we have, most of the shipwrecks are World War II wrecks that were sunk during the bombing run of Desecrate 1, which was in March of 1944. The Iru is a really massive ship, I'd say at least 400 or so feet long. This is a bow turret, one of the big deck guns. That's just the bow of the wreck. And then to the right, the picture here, that's some of the king posts. The deck of the boat starts at about 65 feet. Towards the stern, the deck would be at about 90. And then all the way down to the sand, probably about 110 feet. But these king post areas, they come up to about 35 feet from the surface. Great places to find cuttlefish, turtles, school of jacks, things like that. Up on the top of the king post, you have some beautiful anemone fish, giant clams and stuff. So really a wonderful World War II wreck. You have the Jake seaplane. It's sunk in about 50 feet of water, but it's really a wonderful place to find cuttlefish. It's a neat plane. It's in pretty good condition, so makes for really nice pictures, and the guests usually really enjoy it. It's also a nice, easy dive to start out for maybe your first dive, like your initial tryout dive when you arrive. The Japanese Zero is more of a snorkel, but we just thought it was interesting and a little different. You can only snorkel it, and you need to do it at mid to high tide in order to actually see it. Most of it is out of the water during low tide. Half a day wreck is about a 100-foot wreck, sunk in about 50 feet of water, but it's not World War II wreck. It means hello. That's what half a day means. Next, the Ulong area as you can see in the aerial photograph, this beautiful long white beach, that's the beach where they filmed Survivor. Really beautiful island with some of the most famous dive sites in Palau, located on the outer reef here. We'll start with Ulong Channel itself. As you can see in the aerial picture here, Ulong Channel, believe it or not, is not an actual navigational channel. It is a false channel. It's hard to see at the back of the picture, but the channel actually ends in a shallow reef. So if you try to drive down and through the channel, you're going to have some issues. It's not going to go quite well for your propellers. One of the highlights in Ulong is there's a big patch of lettuce coral. And I've been told that it's actually one of the largest lettuce coral formations in the world. This is a picture of that lettuce coral formation right here. It's also a grouper spawning area. The amount of massive marbled groupers inside that channel is absolutely amazing. It's not, I mean, as I drift down through Ulong Channel, can easily see 50 to 100 really massive groupers inside the channel. Saya's Corner is also another more famous dive site. But one highlight to that area, between February and April, you start to get the orange spines in the Moorish idols spawning. As you can see, these are the orange spines. You see just big, big groups of them. They're spawning and moving up and down the reef, and also the Moorish idols as well. When that happens, you get all the sharks from Saya's Corner chasing them around more or less. So you'll see the school of fish move down the reef, and you just see 20, 30 sharks chasing them up and down the reef. So it makes for some really intense, really incredible action on the reef. But even at times of the year when they're not there, the shark encounters here can be incredible. The amounts of eagle rays that we see, especially the little babies, feeding turtles, octopus, so many great things to see on this dive site. Big schools of fish and sometimes big tuna cruising right along the corner. Two of the others, we have Sandy Paradise, which is a wonderful dive site, even without the bumphead parrotfish spawning, and also Shark City, which is where we do the red snapper spawning. Sandy Paradise, you know, we dive it every week. It actually has a manta cleaning station down at about 60 feet right when we start the dive. We always go there, check it out, especially if we're there early in the morning. We can see sometimes one, maybe two mantas cleaning there quite regularly. So it's a wonderful way to start the morning and can make for a really incredible dive when you jump in the water and right away you see a manta. Now, the special thing about this dive site is every month, 3 days before the new moon, or the 3 days before the new moon, you have the bumphead parrotfish. They gather to spawn during the outgoing tide. The reason they do that, they actually wait for the outgoing tide because when they mate, they want their eggs to be carried offshore and away from predators waiting on the reef to eat all their eggs. So they will start congregating, I mean, in the thousands. And if you guys have seen bumphead parrotfish before, they're not small fish. So you start to get 5,000 of these fish all cruising up and down the reef. That's a lot of fish, and it can be quite a big school of fish congregating. When they start spawning, their heads turn white, as you can see in the picture, and then they group together and yeah, do their thing. And it's really, really incredible. And also, I guess they're so distracted by the whole mating that you get a lot of big sharks coming in, different sharks than just the gray reef and white tips. We get bull sharks coming in quite regularly. So makes for some really incredible big shark encounters when they come in to try and feed on the distracted fish. Next, you have Shark City, which is also in the Ulong area. It's a wonderful dive site on its own. Has some of the most beautiful sea fans along the edge of the wall. We've actually found little pygmy seahorses on those sea fans. But during 3 days before the full moon, the red snapper gather to spawn on an outgoing tide for the same reasons that the bumpheads do. When this happens, you'll just get a school of tens of thousands of red snapper all congregating. First, you'll just see the big schools swimming around, like you see in these pictures. But then once they'll start spawning, and you see, I mean, the water just goes milky. It gets hard to see if you're right in amongst it. But we get some really big, incredible sharks coming in. The bulls, oceanic black tips, other sharks like that. So it can be quite an amazing experience. A lot of adrenaline during those dives. Next, we move to the German Channel area. Like we said, it's a really big area. There's many dive sites in this area. The first site is the Blue Holes. As you can see in this picture, there's actually 4 holes at the top. After you enter in through the hole, it will open up into one absolutely massive chamber, big enough that it's probably the size of 2 of our big boats. And then the most amazing thing about it is you watch the light rays coming down through the 4 holes. It just, the ambient light inside the chamber is just amazing, beautiful for photography. But while you're inside there's also a lot of really cool macro critters that live inside. One of which being the disco clam, or the electric scallop, which as you can see on the mantle here, it has like an electric pulse that moves back, that kind of goes along the mantle to attract its prey. A small fish will get too close and it'll catch it with its tentacles. So the average depth here to the bottom, if you're all the way up inside, maybe about 70 feet. As you get further out towards the mouth, the exit, maybe closer to 90 or 100 feet as you're exiting. But it's an absolutely amazing dive, really, really beautiful. Next, you have Blue Corner itself. This is one of our hook-in dives. We do use reef hooks here in Palau. Sometimes you can have a challenging current, but the main use of the reef hook is when there is a current and you find a place that has a lot of great action. We want to be relaxed, we want to conserve our air, and we want to extend our dive. So those are the main reasons why you would use a reef hook. We'll find an area that has a lot of action, a lot of sharks, just lots of things happening, and we'll hook in that area. And that way everybody can kind of breathe a little bit. They're not fighting the current the entire time, which is obviously using up a ton of air. So it makes it so you can extend your dive and enjoy it. So we'll dive along the edge of the wall. So in an incoming tide, you'd go wall on the right, down along the edge, and an outgoing tide, you'd go wall on the left down this edge here. Okay, and you'd hook in closer to the corner. Usually tons, absolutely tons of sharks, big schools of jacks, big schools of barracuda, turtles, eagle rays, octopus, so much stuff. I mean, and then even the macro life, little leaf scorpion fish and things like that, bumblebee shrimps, or we call them popcorn shrimps, on anemones, just tons of great little things to see. So sometimes when it's a stronger current, we'll stay hooked in longer. If there's not much of a current, then we explore the plateau where we can find lots of incredible stuff. It's also a great place to have close encounters with sharks. We do get the sharks cruising up and down the wall, and when we're hooked in, they can come very close. There's some resident Napoleon wrasse that are very curious and like to approach the divers there as well. So it's a good chance of getting close to a Napoleon wrasse. German Channel itself, as you can see here in the top picture, there's a natural portion of the channel right here. This is all a natural area. And then you have the man-made portion, which was made pre-World War I. They made the channel in order to carry phosphate from Angar to Koror. German Channel, it's an amazing dive site, but when we dive German Channel, we dive the natural portion, not the man-made portion. So you can see right here at the channel entrance in this aerial photograph, you have the deep ocean here, and then you have the channel right here. We start off our dive over in the corner. work our way out to the channel where we have the manta cleaning station here and here. If there's no mantas at the cleaning station, we always do this dive during an incoming tide. Sometimes the mantas are actually feeding. The way this channel works is you have the deep ocean, open ocean here. All the nutrient-rich waters are then funneled into the channel, which makes condenses all the food for the mantas to make it go down in one small area. So what happens is the mantas will just get in here and they'll feed, and they'll just circle back and forth and feed on the all the enriched water that has lots of nutrients and stuff for them to feed on. After we're done observing the mantas, we drift down the channel. While we drift down the channel, there's so many beautiful things to see. We get sometimes ornate eagle rays, regular eagle rays, feather tail rays. You can see mantas, sharks in the channel, beautiful table corals. So just because you're done seeing the mantas and you drift down the channel, the dive's nowhere near over. Some of the best things to see are in the channel itself. All right, so down in Peleliu, we have a few dive sites down here. You can see the boat when we actually tie off to one of our moorings in Camp Beck, which means that when we go down to Peleliu, we can keep the boat nice and calm for everyone to enjoy their day and not be rolling around in possible larger seas. So when we come down from the German Channel area, we cruise along the coastline, and then we enter in through here, and then right inside this lagoon, and that's Camp Beck. Barracks Point is the first dive site. That's this point up here. Very beautiful dive site. It starts off as a sheer wall with beautiful hard corals and soft corals and sea fans. And then there's a coral, more or less a little plateau that comes up, or a coral garden that pops up as you're diving along the reef with usually a ton of turtles. And they don't even care that the divers are there. They just sit there and feed and ignore the divers. And it's really a wonderful dive. And then after the coral plateau ends, it goes to sheer wall again. The next one is Orange Beach Coral Garden, which is actually the beach right here. Orange Beach was, you can actually see a lot of great World War II artifacts during the dive, but it also has some of the most beautiful soft hard corals. The hard coral garden is pristine through here. You can see sharks, schools of fish, very, very beautiful dive site. But up in here, you have a lot of artifacts from World War II. You see bombs, bullets, parts of landing craft, things like that, and mortar shells laying on the ground or laying on the reef. They're a little bit covered up now, but you can still see them in some places. West Wall is this area right here, the kind of the wall leading up to Peleliu Corner. So West Wall, really beautiful dive, has beautiful corals, great marine life. I've seen sailfish a few times diving along here. The shallows are really beautiful. There's a lot of anemone fish. It's one of the great places to see Dory from Finding Nemo, the pallet surgeonfish. So we get to see that fish there. And then, of course, you have what everybody comes and loves to dive, which is the corner itself. Sometimes the corner can have a challenging current. If we get out there and we find that there's a really, really strong current, sometimes we will go and do a different dive site instead. But if we see that it's doable, if we dive what's called the cut, that would be wall on the right. That would be right here. This little cut in the reef is where you would hook in. So you drop in, dive along the wall, hook in, and then after you hook in, you drift across the plateau. And then after you reach the other end, you'd surface. We call this one Peleliu Express. It's given its name because sometimes it can be an express ride. Sometimes it's quite a bit of current here. This is, you drop, oh, missed that one. You drop in right here, and then you dive along the edge of the wall. This is what we consider advanced hooking. It's because we will hook in, and then the sharks will move down the reef. So we'll unhook, swim down the reef further, find the sharks again, hook in again, and we hook in multiple times throughout the dive, kind of just leapfrogging down the reef to stay with the sharks and all the marine life. But you can see in the picture here the beautiful soft corals. There's like an orange soft coral that blankets the entire reef area. Really amazing corals down there. Makes for an incredible dive. So one interesting thing about Peleliu. Go ahead.
You want to take some time to answer some questions real quick? We had some on.
Okay, sure.
So when is the best time of year to dive? Is there one season that's has less current, or a dry season?
I wouldn't say that there's a current with a season with less current, but people consider our high season to be anywhere from, I would say, October, November timeframe all the way until about July. That may be extending it a little bit, but to me, the high season is when you have the normal northeast trade winds. Most of the diving is along the west side of Palau, so if the wind is out of the west, it can make things more challenging. So normal trade winds are northeast, which makes everything perfect for diving in Palau. And we experience normal trade winds about anywhere from October all the way until about July. When it gets to the August time frame, the wind will start to switch around to the southwest. That doesn't mean you can't dive in Palau. That just means that there's a potential possibility the windward side could be the diving side of Palau. Sometimes it's only 5 knots of wind, which is no big deal. And actually, most of the time it's like that. But sometimes it can be quite strong, and it makes it a little more challenging to get to the prime dive sites of Palau.
Okay, great answer. And then we have a question here saying, what are the minor differences between the two boats? I know you said they are sister ships. What about the itineraries that they run?
The itineraries that they run, they both run the same itinerary. However, they'll start in different places. One will start in Ulong, the other will go straight to German Channel. So that way they're not on top of each other. They will cross paths at some point throughout the week as they both move to the opposite ends. But they'll start in different areas, but they do run the same itinerary. We do custom itineraries for group charters. If a group asks to come on and go up north or something like that on an extended charter, it's something that can be arranged, but it's done for group charters, group bookings. I guess that's about it.
Okay. One question here says, the formation of fish life look impressive. Would you say the same for the soft coral and hard coral?
The soft corals and hard corals are beautiful there as well. Yeah, I mean, all the dive sites really have nice hard corals and soft corals. Okay. Some are better than others, but it's very healthy and alive there as well.
Okay, great. And are reef hooks on the boats, or do people need to bring their own?
Yes, we issue out reef hooks to anybody that doesn't have one when they arrive.
Okay, great. All right, I think that, who are the 2 captains on each boat right now?
We have Captain Ike on the Rock Island Aggressor, and then his son, Jim, is captain of the Palau Aggressor.
I didn't know that. And I know Ike's been around a good while, right?
Yeah, Ike's been on board for well over 20-something years. Jim's actually been on board for at least 10 years now, but he took over as captain maybe, I'd say 2 years ago at this point. He took over from me, actually, when I became the operations manager. He took over as captain.
Okay, that's great to hear. Well, all right, folks, keep asking us some questions, and Scott will let you get back to your presentation.
Okay. So Peleliu Corner. There's one very unique thing that happens in Peleliu Corner. Between the months of February and April, we'll get the sailfin snapper spawning. It happens right at the Peleliu Corner. Big congregation of fish, and then when they actually spawn, as you can see in this picture, there's actually a bull shark in this picture. We get some opportunities for big sharks to come in. But even if it's not a spawning dive, we get really beautiful big eagle rays. We've had whale sharks. The last time I actually did it, we saw a mobula ray, manta rays, things like that. So can be absolutely amazing dive. And as I was saying, the soft coral, there's a beautiful, amazing orange soft coral that covers the edge of the wall. Now, the top of the plateau is kind of bare because of the strong currents, but that when you go down the edges of the walls, very beautiful soft coral just kind of blanket the entire wall. Now, one interesting thing about Peleliu Corner, when you start to dive, if you start diving the cut, you're in the Philippine Sea. When you come up, you'll be in the Pacific Ocean. So it's just one thing everybody loves to write in their logbook, that they started to dive in the Pacific Ocean and then finished in the Philippine Sea, or vice versa. So always makes for an interesting thing to write in your logbook. So as I was saying before, there is a optional land tour that we offer when we go down to Peleliu. The Battle of Peleliu was quite an extensive battle that the U.S. forces underestimated greatly, how quick and how easy that battle would be. D-Day was September 15th, 1944. The U.S. Marines landed on White and Orange Beach. There was an estimated 10,000 Japanese troops on the island at the time. They thought the U.S. thought the battle would take about 3 days. Ended up taking them 3 months to take the island. So it was quite a vicious battle. The hardest or worst part of the battle was on Bloody Nose Ridge, which was an uphill fight. And the Japanese had over 600 caves up on Bloody Nose Ridge. So it was a very difficult uphill battle. And I think, they really underestimated how easy it would be. There's some really cool things to see. Up on Bloody Nose Ridge, they have a Japanese shrine, like a dedication to the fallen soldiers. Also, the U.S. has a memorial up there. You can see tanks, the Japanese light tank, also Sherman tanks. There's a museum on the island, which has lots of beautiful things and a lot of information about, things that happened on the island. And it's a good learning experience, and certainly a nice opportunity to get off the boat, stretch your legs, and just have a look around on one of the islands as well. Jellyfish Lake, one of the highlights of Palau, or probably one of the most things that they advertise about Palau or makes it unique is Jellyfish Lake. It is snorkel only. And of course, a lot of people have heard, like a year ago, there wasn't any jellyfish in the lake. It has recovered. People that I talk to say it's recovered at least to 90% of what it was before. We haven't been there for months now, and nobody has. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. I'm sure there's people going there, but only a very few. No tourists. So I bet it's had a chance to even recover even more fully. But when we've been going there on our last charters before we ceased the charters. Millions of jellyfish in the lake. It's really a great experience. It's about a 15-minute walk. You walk up and over the hill, and there's a little dock on the inside. You get in the water, and then you swim out to where the jellyfish are. One unique thing that's changed from before to now is there was always moon jellyfish inside the lake, but now after they've recovered, there's actually a lot more moon jellyfish in the lake than there was before. The jellyfish, for the most part, considered to be non-stinging. So when you get in the water, they brush up against you. You won't feel anything. They don't sting you. They don't hurt you. Really not a problem. Easy, beautiful thing to see. If you want to talk technically, I guess if you probably don't want to shave before you go in the lake, you could feel like a light little itch. You certainly want to make sure that you follow the directions of the staff when you're in the lake. You don't want to kick the jellyfish really hard or anything like that. You could tear them to shreds and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's an amazing experience to swim through millions of jellyfish. Um, Also, along the outside edge of the lake, you have the mangrove root system. This is something a lot of people skip. They just swim out and just look at the jellyfish in the lake. I love to come over and swim along the edge of the mangrove root system. There's beautiful colors of sponges that grow on the roots. Uh, cool little cardinal fish. There's also an anemone here that eats the jellyfish. So you can actually, in this picture, there's one that's kind of getting caught by the anemone and eaten. Chandelier Cave is also one of the other, it's actually right in Malakal, very close to where you board the boat. Really cool limestone stalactite formations inside. There's 4 different chambers, and you only need to dive down to 25 or so feet to actually enter through, I guess, the deepest one of the chambers to get up inside. But you do spend most of the time up on the surface. You just dive down, get underneath, and then surface inside the actual chamber. The first chamber we call the chandelier. It's one massive stalactite in the center of the room. You only need to dive down about 10 feet to enter the first chamber from the outside. To go to the second chamber, you need to go down about 20 feet, and then you'll surface in the one that we call ribbons, because it looks like the stalactites have a ribbony effect on the ceiling, which makes it very unique. The third chamber, you need to descend down about 25 or so feet, and then you surface in the third chamber. I think this one's the most beautiful. It has lots and lots of small pointy stalactites inside there. And you can actually see the little white tube that the water's dripping through, carrying the calcium, and then the calcium gets stuck on the outside, crystallizes, and that's how the stalactites grow. Then you descend down only about 5 or 6 feet. The fourth chamber is we call the hot tub. It has a little rock formation, and it's about the size of a hot tub. And it's weird how the rock formation creates almost like a seat for you to sit down and just kind of relax. And you could talk to your buddy about your exit. But pretty much the entire time, if you were to cover up your dive light, you can see the ambient light of the exit for your way out. So it's not too scary or spooky. You can always see the blue light of the exit. As you swim out, it's only about 3 meters or 10 feet of water at the exit. Right there at the exit, we commonly see the mandarin fish. They're not spawning at the time that we go. We go in the middle of the daytime, but the fish are there. We get to observe the mandarin fish, and it's during our charter, without specifically going to see the mandarin fish, it's one of the best places to see them during our charter. Okay, that's all I have as far as the presentation. I guess I could answer questions.
Yeah, great job. Let's go ahead and turn your screen share off. I'll go ahead and ask some of the ones we got here. If you were to do any the land excursions, which including Jellyfish Lake and exploring Peleliu on land, do you miss any dives to do those?
Yes. In order to do the World War II land tour on Peleliu, you miss one dive in order to do the land tour.
And
you miss one dive?
Does that remove you from iron diver contention then if you go do the land tour?
No, because you are doing an activity that we offer. Okay. So no, it does not mean that you lose your iron diver.
I imagine the site that you guys are doing during the land tour, it might be the same site you might have done already once that day, perhaps.
Not necessarily, but we won't schedule we're not going to make it the best. Well, you never know what's going to show up on any given dive site. However, we wouldn't schedule it to be the best dive of the week, the one that everybody would miss to go on the land tour. We usually schedule it during West Wall. So the divers, if they've already done Peleliu Corner, West Wall is the wall leading up to Peleliu Corner. So the highlight is the corner itself, but West Wall can be beautiful, very relaxing, very nice dive. Or we could possibly schedule it for Orange Beach. It all depends on the crowd. If the people are really interested in World War II and the artifacts and stuff, then we would probably make it West Wall. So that way they still get to go to Orange Beach and see the artifacts while diving.
Okay, I see. Now, let's see, what should we ask next here? Can you actually explain why the jellyfish in Jellyfish Lake don't sting you?
Well, I'm not a scientist, but just telling you what I do know. Um, so during the daytime, the jellyfish actually go down into the nutrient-rich layer of the lake, which is deeper in the lake. They go down and they get all those nutrients and things on their bodies. During the daytime, they come up in the sun and they grow like algae and things like that on their bodies, on the bell of the jellyfish, and they actually eat that. So that they don't have all the fish life like they do on the reef. And their stinging mechanism was to actually sting the fish, and so they could catch prey. Now they've almost, you can almost say they've become farmers. So now they're growing their own food on themselves and eating that. So yeah, they don't sting. They can't say they totally don't sting. That's not 100% true. I think if you picked up the jellyfish and you rubbed it on your lips, you would definitely feel something. Maybe if you want free Botox treatment, you could try that. So
There you go, being resourceful, huh? All right.
that's right.
All right. So let's see. What's the diver to guide ratio?
We have 18 guests on board, and it would be, you could say, 8 to 1 would be the law here in Palau. But so if we have 18 divers in the water, we put in 3 guides.
Okay. Are there actually any laws there in Palau about depth and max bottom time?
There's no law in Palau about the depth. Our boat has a general rule that we dive within recreational limits.
Mhm.
Obviously, if people are on nitrox, then they have to dive within the nitrox limits.
Right.
We use a 1.4 partial pressure, so 110 feet would be the typical max on any of our dives, because the majority of people do dive nitrox, and we use 32% on the boat.
Next question here says, please clarify the difference between the Rock Islands Aggressor and the Palau Aggressor 2. Is it just a routing difference?
There's no difference in the actual dives that they do. So they do the same route. They just may do different dive areas in different days. But the vessel itself, the camera table layout, the way that the camera table is laid out on the Rock Island Aggressor is a little bit different than the Palau Aggressor layout. It's literally just where the tables are located, the camera tables. And then as far as like emergency or anything you'd want to know for like emergency reasons, the only difference would be the bow door to get out to muster station number 2 on the bow. The Rock Island Aggressor door is a bulkhead door. So it's about 3/4 the size of a normal door with dogs on it to actually secure the door. And then on the Palau Aggressor, it's a normal full-size door. So other than that, I mean, both boats now have all the same itineraries. They have same amenities like TVs in the rooms. Skiffs are the same. Before, like years ago, there was more differences, but over the last 4 or 5 years, we've done everything to make both boats the same, more or less.
And can you touch again, where's the home harbor for the boats?
It's right in Malakal Port. We have moorings right in front of Palau Royal Resort, and also in front of Neko Marine is where our moorings are. So we, our main boarding areas would be either right at Neko Marine, or we use the fisheries dock as well sometimes to board our guests.
This isn't a question that's gotten asked yet, but I think it would be beneficial. Could you tell us about how flying into y'all's area, how does it normally work?
If you're coming from the U.S., most people would use United. I know I fly from the East Coast all the time. My flights are usually Philly to like Colorado, like Denver or Houston, and then from there fly direct to Hawaii, and then Hawaii to Guam, and then Guam to Palau. That would be my normal fastest route.
And then once you're in Palau, do you have to take a hopper to get to the harbor there that you mentioned?
No, you do not. Once you fly into Palau, you are about a 15-minute ride from the airport to the actual area where the boat is.
Okay.
That would just be by taxi or transfer.
And do both boats have the lift on them for the tender? You touched on that. That is true. Is there any marine park fees?
Yeah, definitely marine park fees. Coor State has a permit that lasts for 10 days. If you want to go to Jellyfish Lake, it's 100. If you're not going to go to Jellyfish Lake, then you pay 50 just to dive the area around Koror. Peleliu has a permit. There's two different Peleliu permits you would get. One is for the diving around Peleliu, and then the other is actually for getting on land in Peleliu as a separate permit. So they're all covered in the port fee that you would pay.
Okay. And we have some questions pop up from the airport questions we just answered. Are there transport included, or the taxis readily available on the island?
Transportation is not included in our charter because the majority of people arrive early and go to a hotel. And when you book a hotel, you arrange your transfer with them at the time. So usually our pickups, when we actually pick up guests, we find out what hotels you're staying in. We go pick you up at all the hotels and then bring you to the boat. People that fly in the day of, we just see that on the GIS that you guys fill out. And if like the United flight lands at 8:40, we usually know who's on it. And yeah, we go there, pick you up, but you pay we use Necco Marine as our transfer provider, and you would pay Necco Marine, I believe $22 for the transfer to the boat.
Okay, great. Is there any must-have items to bring with you on a Palau trip?
I wouldn't say anything's must-have. I mean, we rent dive gear, all your diving emergency stuff like, the reef hooks, sausages, all that stuff. If you don't bring one, we issue one to you for free. We do give out lifelines, are free to use when you're on the boat, just in case, just for security purposes. We give those out for free to the guests as well. So, I mean, I guess really just bring yourself is all you really have to bring. Maybe some clothes would be helpful too.
Swimsuit, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, what's the water temp like? Let's talk on that.
I would say about 82 to 84 degrees. Now, it's pretty stable throughout the year. Drops a couple of degrees. I would say it may float between 80 to 86 would be my guess during the year.
Now,
I dive in a rash guard and shorts all year. So,
okay.
But I have a little insulation. So, some people, I'd say the most preferred dive set would be a 3mm wetsuit.
Okay. Now, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you a semi-difficult question, because when we had our call last week, our preliminary call, just you and me, Scott, going over your PowerPoint, I couldn't believe all the dive sites that I wanted to try it. They looked so good. I was like trying to think which ones would be, if I had to rank them, which ones I wanted to do. And I want to hear from the guy that knows it good. If you had to rank the top 3, maybe even 5, let's do 5, and throw Jellyfish Lake and Peleliu Land Tour, or the World War II Land Tour. What's the top 5 in order that you can't miss things to do while you're on an aggressor trip in Palau?
Top 5 things to do. Well, Blue Corner, Peleliu Corner, I'd say Sayash Corner, German Channel, and Ulong Channel.
Oh, so all underwater. You could probably make a top 15 with all the things you guys have here. The blue holes look very cool to me too. Yeah,
you asked my opinion though. I mean, I love diving. I love marine life. I like underwater photography. So that's what I want. I want to see all the cool stuff. I mean, I've worked on the boats for a long time. I've done the land tour many, many times. It is really great. I mean, I didn't have to go all those times. I chose to go. So, I mean, for somebody that actually works on the boat to literally just say, oh yeah, I want to go, and go like 30, 40 times. I mean, it says something about it. It's not like everybody's fighting like who has to go. The crew members actually want to go. Sometimes we get the opportunity to send like, the stewardess or the chef text so they can actually see it as well. So these are all really fun things to do. The crew really enjoy it. So yeah, I mean, I think there's so many great things to see here. So
It's definitely gone up to, I'd say, my very top of my bucket list of places I want to come try. Let's also ask about night diving and how many total dives do you normally do in a week?
Ooh. We do 4 on the first day, and then 5 dives a day all the way until Friday. We don't do a night dive in Ulong because getting, like you would see when you're trying to drive there, it's difficult enough to drive there safely in the daytime, let alone at night. You'd never be able to get out to the reef. So we don't do a night dive that night. We do 4 dives, and then on the final day we do 2. I think, without actually adding it up, I think that's about 25.
Okay.
4, 8.
Okay. Scott, that about wraps it up. Really interesting PowerPoint. I think you did a great job. I appreciate you being on with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad, and thanks for waking up so early. You said you're going diving today, huh?
Yeah, we're gonna go do some dives right now, so should be fun.
Lucky man. All right, guys, our next Zoom call that we have scheduled is on June 2nd. We have Andit Calaparsaro talking about the Okeanos Aggressor 1 and 2, which is Cocos Island. That's going to be another great one to check out. It's going to be 3 o'clock on Tuesday. So other than that, we appreciate it and stay safe. Thanks again, Scott. Take care.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.